I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with an amazing author. His name is E. Dennis King, and he has written a fascinating book. It is called Native American Movie Actors. It is a tribute to the Native American actors who have significantly contributed to Western movies. This book honors the courage, bravery, and dedication of these actors, highlighting their roles in creating magnificent action scenes that define the genre. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Dennis, great to see you here today.
Thank you.
Where did you come up with the idea of writing a book about Native American movie actors?
That's a good question. Years ago, I happened to be visiting in southeastern Utah, and the Navajos there have a great big, huge visitor center. Well, as it turned out, I walked into that visitor center. The room was full of people, and one gentleman, Navajo, came up to me out of the blue and says, "Would you care to have a complimentary tour of the valley?" I said, "Buddy, twist my arm." And come to find out, he was assigned by the Navajo tribe to help the movie companies select the movie sites when they would come to do their movies. So we spent all day long out here in Monument Valley, and he was showing me all these sites where they had the movie sets. And I had my little 35 millimeter camera with me. I was able to take some pictures. They weren't very good. But during the course of this day, we started talking about these Native Americans that were in the movies. And it's too bad that they didn't get the recognition for all the hard work that they did. They were the ones that did all the dirty work in the movies. They were the ones that got shot and fall off horses and wiped out the cavalry. And anyway, over the years, I had these slides in my desk drawer, and when I come, this has been 40 years ago, and I wanted to write my personal history. And I come across these slides. I says, "What am I going to do with those slides?" I thought, well, I'm going to make a book about these Native Americans and, to the best of my ability, give them credit for all the hard work they did in the movies.
Wonderful, wonderful. It was a great idea. We know a lot about John Wayne and Gary Cooper and the guys who played the cowboys, but we don't know too much about the Native American actors in them. The only Native American actor I was ever aware of was Jay Silverhills, who played Tonto in The Lone Ranger, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So who were some of the outstanding actors that you talk about in your book?
Well, Jay Silverhills was one of the very first, and it was because of him that he helped a lot of the Native Americans get involved. But let me think of some of the names.
But I know Jay Silverhills, like you said, did a good job.
He was the star in Geronimo.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a chance to visit with him on the phone when I was doing the research on the Indians, but he was a big one.
Yeah.
And then Chief George was one of the very first that got an Academy Award for being in the movies. But it was interesting when he was interviewed. One of the people that asked him about his Academy Award, one of the nominees says, "Well, why do we give Academy Awards to Indians that played Indians?" And it was just a sign of when he was able to kind of open the door for a lot of the Native Americans to be movie stars.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. It must have been exciting for you to tour Monument Valley. That's where so many of the movies, the great Westerns, were made, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
The scenery there, and here's another story about how the movies got started in southern Utah. There was a gentleman down there in the Depression years. His name was Harry Golding, and he wanted to find a way to create an income for the Native Americans, and so he took some photographs that was in the Arizona Highway magazine took him to Hollywood, and he wanted to meet John Ford, the director.
Hmm.
Well, he got to Hollywood, and John Ford's secretary says, "Do you have an appointment with Mr. Ford?" He says, "No." She said, "Well, John Ford can't see you today." And as it turned out, he said, "Well, I come from Navajo country, and time doesn't mean much." And he rolled out his Indian blanket and sat down on the floor. So the secretary went and got one of the assistant directors, and they were going to throw Harry Golding out of the office. And
Amazing.
during the scuffle, Harry Golding happened to flash a lot of these Monument Valley pictures to this assistant director. And before long, they were both sitting down on the floor looking at these pictures. And the assistant director says, "Mr. Ford needs to see these pictures." So we went and got Mr. Ford, and he came out and he says, "Where did you get these pictures?" And he says, "Monument Valley." He said, "Well, how soon can you have a crew set up for me to come and film the movie Stagecoach? And I'm going to bring John Wayne with me."
Amazing. What a thrill that must have been. John Wayne, till this day, is such a larger than life star. And back then, to have John Wayne be in the picture, and Stagecoach is one of my favorite Westerns. I don't know about you. It's
It's
definitely
played
one
on
of my
TV
favorites.
over and over and over. It was filmed in 1940.
Yeah.
One comment that John Wayne made, he made a lot of movies there, and one of his comments was, speaking of Monument Valley, "This is where God put the West."
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's completely beautiful. I've spent a lot of time out west. I've been to Cody, Wyoming, and those areas as well. You really do get that feeling for the old West when you go out to Utah, southern Utah, Wyoming, parts of Montana. And thank goodness the old West is still a little bit alive and well, right?
Right.
Yeah,
They don't
absolutely.
make
What's your
Westerns
favorite Western, by the
anymore.
way?
They don't make those Westerns anymore.
No, not really.
People like my book because I like to reminisce about a lot of the movies that they've seen.
Yep, yep. Yeah, absolutely. The Searchers is another great Western as well, and a lot of fine performances, I presume, by Native American actors in that.
Well, if I can, I'd like to tell you about how the origination of the American Indians. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Go ahead. Sure,
Okay, we lost our
absolutely.
picture.
Nope, we can hear you.
Um,
You're all set.
Let me tell you the story about how I learned about the origination of the American Indians. In my research, I came across this book that has a history of 600 years before Christ to 400 years after his death. And in that book, it tells about two families. One family was named, the head of the family, his name was Lehi. He had four sons. And then he got another family. His name was Ishmael, and he had daughters. Well, these families left Jerusalem because they were told that the city was going to be destroyed.
Hmm.
Well, they spent years out in the wilderness. They finally made their way to the ocean. There they built a ship. They sailed to America. They landed in Central and South America, and that's where they built civilizations. Well, hundreds of years later, it tells in this book where Christ came to these people and actually set up his church, and these people became Christians. Well, over the tens of thousands of years, the population grew into the millions, and then eventually there was one author in the back of the book that tells about how you could read in that book about how that book is true by reading on page in chapter 10, verse 4 and 5, about how you can prove that the Book of Mormon was true. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting story indeed.
You have a copy of my book, the Book
Yep,
of Mormon, right?
absolutely, absolutely. It's a terrific book. It took a lot of research on your part. Took you a number of years to actually write it, right? You said about 3 years you worked on it?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the research? Did you enjoy the writing process?
It was absolutely fascinating. I couldn't quit, and I had to find a place where I could stop, where I could quit writing about it. And the more I
Exactly.
wrote, the more I had compassion for those Native Americans that gave up so much, their way of life, to move over for the American settlers that came to the American West.
Yeah. It's amazing. And we have a new actor on the scene. Her name is Lily Gladstone, and she just won a Golden Globe for The Killers of the Flower Moon. So more and more Native American actors are getting recognition, which is great. And your book is certainly shining a spotlight on them as well. Before we leave you today, Dennis, anything you want to let the folks at home know? Anything you want to share with them?
Well, only as I just mentioned that we need to have compassion and remember those people that gave so much to put their lifestyle at risk. And in the very back of the book, there's a poem I'd like to read.
Sure.
It says, "Who will sing my name?" It says, "When I see the eagle no more, who will sing my name? When the end of my path is reached, will you sing my name in prayer? The old ones fade and are no more, and no one calls their names. Our people vanish, and some to ashes, and no one sings their prayers. We once strong and many, I call the names of those before. To those who remain, have no knowing, for them I sing my prayer. But when I'm gone, who follows me? Who will call my name?" And that's
Wonderful,
what this
wonderful.
book
Well,
is
I
all
know
about. So
Dennis
remember
King
those
will call their
people.
name because you've done it in your book. You've given credit where credit is due. The name of the book is Native American Actors. It is a tribute to the Native American actors who have significantly contributed to those Westerns that we all love. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on
Thank you.
Spotlight.